Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go!
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello, Mark here, and welcome to another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. Thanks so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. It is your support that keeps us going. Now, I don't know how many of you saw our socials this week, but Mickey, Marvel, and More reached a major milestone. According to Spotify, the provider that hosts our little dog and pony show, Mickey, Marvel, and More has reached over 1,000 streams and downloads. That is so amazing. That may not sound like a lot compared to much bigger podcasts, but it's pretty special to us. And the only way we got there, that was from you guys, the fans. For those of you that have been with us from the very beginning, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. And for our new friends we've picked up along the way, even if this is your very first episode, you're all part of what makes Mickey, Marvel, and More amazing. Speaking of milestones, we have another milestone episode. That's right, we have another milestone episode coming in the next few weeks. We will be reaching episode number 50. Milestone episode. I'm gonna wear that button out. The Mickey, Marvel, and More team has something super fun planned, and we will let you know more about it as we get closer to episode number 50. Milestone episode. Of course, I was going to use that sound effect again. Now, after all of our selfless promotion is out of the way, let's talk about what's coming up in this episode. Who in our audience remembers the Disney Entertainment District Pleasure Island? Huh? And for those of us that have been around long enough to remember when it opened, newsflash, it's time for you to schedule your colonoscopy. In today's family chat, Laura and I are going to sit down around the virtual table and wax philosophical and talk all about Disney's Pleasure Island. For those that are unfamiliar, don't worry, we will tell you all about it and share some of our favorite stories and memories. But before we get to that, how about a little news from in and around the Disneyverse?
I see you have constructed a new lightsaber. Your skills are complete.
We've talked about auctions for Star Wars props before on the show. I myself am a prop collector, but generally I buy reproductions, mainly because those are the only ones I can afford. However, I am always fascinated by movie props, specifically Star Wars movie props, and what they sell for during auctions. Recently, the prop store had an auction in Los Angeles, and a record bid came in for what was the highest valued product ever put on sale from the hit franchise. It was a lightsaber prop used by Darth Vader in the duel scenes from The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The lightsaber hilt was used on set by David Prowse and his stunt double, Bob Anderson, for both of the iconic battles with Luke Skywalker. It sold for, okay, are you ready for this? It sold for $3.6 million. That was a combination of the $2.9 million bid plus a $700,000 buyer's premium paid to the auction house. That is insane. The prop store regularly has several auctions every year. In another recent auction, an abandoned Star Wars draft was discovered in Harrison Ford's old London apartment, and it was sold for $13,600. Now, during this most recent auction, there were more than 400 items for sale. One of the other items that sold during this auction was an Indiana Jones bullwhip belt that sold for $485,100. That's right, you heard that right. Not the bullwhip itself, but the belt that held the bullwhip sold for almost $500,000. FYI, the prop store auction house located in Los Angeles has another auction coming up this month and even more planned for the next year. So if you're looking for any last-minute Christmas or birthday gift ideas for me, Be sure to check it out.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
This next story was submitted by a loyal listener and friend of the show, Guybrush Threepwood. Thank you so much, Mr. Threepwood. It's a story and a problem that I've seen play out several times over the last few years, and the problem doesn't seem to be getting any better. It's all about the handmade candy canes at Disneyland during the Christmas season. Every year for the last several years, the confectionery at Disneyland has been making these large, specialty pulled candy canes that they sell during the Christmas season. They only make a limited amount, and because of that, there always seems to be grief. The candy canes sell for $12.99 and are limited to only 2 per customer. The problem that they're having this year is that they've been putting them on sale when only resort guests have access to the park during the early entry period. So by the time the park opens to everybody else, the day guests and the non-resort guests, all of the candy canes are sold out. Now, Disneyland annual pass holders and locals to the area have always been very protective of Disneyland and treat it like it's their very own private park, and are always fiercely critical of anything that doesn't go their way, or anything that's sort of a perceived slight. Now, that topic alone is almost worth an entire family chat. But in this case, I think that they are somewhat right. Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort have many differences, the biggest of which is that in Disneyland there are only 3 official resort hotels, but they also have quite a few good neighbor hotels that are in the area that are also part of the Disneyland Resort packages. However, that being said, there are still way less resort guests in Disneyland than there are in Walt Disney World. On any given day, there are usually more day guests than resort guests present in the Disneyland theme parks. So to make such an exclusive limited item only available to such a small group of people, it just seems like they're getting an unfair advantage. This candy cane distribution has been an ongoing struggle in Disneyland for the last couple of years. They do hand out wristbands and they make everybody get into an orderly line, but the line is enormous, and there are often a lot of little minor scuffles in the line. I don't know what the best solution to this problem is, but I feel like they need to come up with some better way to distribute these limited candy canes. To be fair, I don't get what all the excitement is about. You can get handmade candy canes almost anywhere in the world from various candy stores, but Disney fans and collectors can sometimes be a little bit rabid. A quick check of eBay before the recording of this episode showed me that there were a fair amount of candy canes being resold at much higher prices, of course. Even though they are limited to only 2 per customer, many scalpers work in groups, and they buy the maximum that they can and then pool all of their resources and then resell them on places like eBay. A similar problem has happened with exclusive popcorn buckets in Disneyland and Walt Disney World, but at the end of the day, you're never really going to be able to get rid of all the scalpers. But maybe they should do some sort of an app-based virtual queue or mobile wait list. That way, everybody has access to it before the park opens to stake out their place in line and be given a number and a time to return to collect their candy cane treasures. That way, it's a little more fair and even, and everybody gets their shot. Hopefully, Disneyland will do something like that in their future. What do you guys think? Do you have any suggestions for a better system for selling these candy canes? I still don't get the hype, but as a collector who often pre-orders a lot of things and gets locked out of websites online sometimes when I do so, I do understand the frustration. We'll keep following this story and we'll keep you posted on how things pan out this holiday season for Candy Cane Gate. So stay tuned.
Jumbo, everyone, and welcome to Kilimanjaro Safaris.
Finally today, our favorite kind of news here on Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney Animal News. Although today it's not quite as fun as it usually is. The time has come for the Cairo Spiny Mouse to be retired from the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail at Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. For those unfamiliar, on the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail at about the halfway point, there's this little building that's sort of like a warden's shack, and inside that they have many small animals like turtles, frogs, naked mole rats, and of course our little buddy the Spiny Mouse. Apparently, over the last several weeks, our spiny friend was showing signs of labored breathing, and it was decided that he would retire to Rafiki's Planet Watch. Spiny mice usually have a life expectancy of about 2 years, and our little buddy is a little over 4 years old. His old habitat is currently covered with a tarp. The place he was taken to, Rafiki's Planet Watch, is a place to learn about conservation efforts and participate in different animal-themed activities. One of the parts of the exhibit is a veterinary treatment center that has all kinds of different animals from all around Animal Kingdom that are receiving care, and we get to see the animals that are being taken care of and learn a little bit more about them. My family and I have seen the little Spiny Mouse over the last few years on the exploration trail, and I've got to tell you, he'll be missed. As always, Mickey, Marvel, and More will bring you the big and tiny Disney animal news, even if it's a little sad sometimes. So stick with us.
Pleasure Island, an entire island of excitement where mom and dad can seize the night at 8 separate clubs of every variety.
What if I told you there was an entertainment complex in Walt Disney World that was devoted to adults with 8 different themed bars and nightclubs and cool restaurants and shops? Would you want to go? Well, to go there now, you'd need a plutonium-powered DeLorean because it closed several years ago. But Pleasure Island was pretty amazing, and that's what we're here to talk about today in the family chat. Let's bring in my wife, Laura, and talk all about the coolness that was Pleasure Island. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, happy to be here.
You know, as I was putting together the information for this family chat, I really was thinking that I don't think there has been a time in recent history that I have gone to Disney World and at one point or another thought about Pleasure Island.
Yeah.
And all the places you could go to.
Yeah. We've been going to Disney World for a long time. And in that period of time, there have been attractions that have opened and closed. And, some of them I enjoyed and wish that they didn't close. But nothing hits quite like Pleasure Island did. And I agree with you. I think in recent years, I think more and more about it and how much we would enjoy doing it now that our children are older and we could actually go.
Right. I think that there would be aspects of that Zach and Parker would just think were great. And we'll talk about those here in a moment. So before we get started, let's just dive into it and say, what was Pleasure Island?
Well, I think you described it pretty well. It was an adult entertainment complex that had themed bars, restaurants, and shops. And during its heyday, which it opened in 1989, it went through some various changes over time. When it opened, it required you to pay an admission in the evening, and children under 18 had to be accompanied by an adult. There were a couple of clubs that children just couldn't go into at any time. But during the day, the whole complex was open for the shopping and the eating part. But really, as I recall, it kind of came alive at night. And
well, that was the whole idea.
That's right. And that was really the peak time to be there. The first time that I remember that we went, the club lineup was something like this. There was Mannequin's Dance Palace, which is exactly the kind of thing that you would think about if you were thinking about a 1980s dance club. Big video screens on the wall, loud DJ, people dressed up, lights, disco smoke. It was
all the trappings.
Yes, all of that. Honestly, we didn't spend much time in Mannequins.
No, we went to all of them at least once or twice.
We did. Another one that was there from day one was 8 Tracks.
That was a good one.
That was a lot of fun. It was devoted to the 1970s. And I know that there's a lot of places now that sort of do the 1970s kitsch thing, but in 1989 and the early 90s, which is the first time that we went, the 1970s was a little bit of an unusual vintage thing to be a part of.
Pretty laughed at that point.
Yeah.
People were still like, disco is dead. The 70s were awful.
The whole concept, though, was a lot of fun. It was a 1970s style disco. There were all kinds of trappings and decorations like lava lamps and fuzzy chairs. And if I remember right, when they would play the hustle, the waiters and waitresses and some of the bartenders would get out on the dance floor and would lead the patrons in the hustle, which was a lot of fun.
They did. And they had drinks that were also of the time period, the kind of drinks they would have served, at Studio 54 and those kind of places in the 70s. And they had the Saturday Night Fever style dance floor with the lighted up cube sections. It was really, really fun.
Yeah. Then there was also the Rock and Roll Beach Club, which had a sandy floor, if I remember right. Not the entire thing,
Sure.
but definitely had that beach vibe. The BET Soundstage came along later. The Pleasure Island Jazz Company came along later. House of Blues came along later. But there were a couple of places that we spent a lot of time when we would go to Pleasure Island in those early days. One of those was the Adventurers Club, and the other was the Comedy Warehouse.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the Comedy Warehouse first.
The Comedy Warehouse was a theater that was devoted to an improv show. They had a group of about, was it 6 to 8 performers?
Yeah, it was somewhere in that neighborhood. It was about 6 or 8.
If I remember, you would line up outside in order to get a seat for the show. The shows were always filled to the brim. There was no advance tickets. There were no reservations. You just had to stand in line. And if you couldn't get into the early show, you had to wait around for the later show.
They had several shows a night. And I think they ran all the way up until right before midnight.
The seating in the theater was stadium style. So it was kind of like a series of curved bars that you would sit at. And by bar, I mean like a high top bar.
Right.
There would be probably 4 to 6 people in a section, and there would be telephones
On the walls.
on the
right.
walls at about every other row. I don't know that I really remember what this entire seating capacity was of the theater. It was fairly large.
Yeah, I would say you could easily get 150 people in there.
I'd say that's right. And then down at the bottom was the stage.
Right. And so the whole place was looking down and focused on the stage. So it was really fun. There wasn't a bad seat, really.
Right. So the group would come out. If I remember right, they'd do some kind of a cheesy opening number that was kind of funny and silly and goofy. And then they would start to call people on the phones
Randomly.
in the audience randomly. And if I remember right, we were able to go to the Comedy Warehouse at least 2 times that I recall. Both times we got called on the phone. And so we got to have our suggestions as part of the show, which was a lot of fun. Basically, they would call up somebody, sort of have a silly conversation with the person.
They'd tease them. They'd ask them their names, where they're from, all that kind of stuff.
They'd make some kind of corny jokes. And then they would do an improv sketch based on either some idea or something that was brought up in the conversation.
Yeah, your name, where you worked, the people you were with, all of those kind of things. And they would incorporate it into the sketch. And I think they did that 3 times. They would call various people, and then they would do 3 different sketches or improv scenes. That coupled with the opening and closing, that was pretty much the show.
Yeah, the show was maybe, 45 minutes?
Pretty much every Disney show is designed to be about 45 minutes.
Right, right. Before I move on, though, I should say before the show started, the waiters and waitresses would come around and take your drink order, so that they would make sure that everybody had their alcoholic beverage
Right.
before the show started. And then kind of once everybody had been served a drink, then the show would start. The one that I remember most vividly is a trip that we took with our friend Margie.
Oh, I remember that one.
And the crew came up with their song, Mark, his wife Laura, their friend Margie from Evansville.
Yeah, well, what was funny about it was, I was next to the phone. I answered the phone, and they said, who are you? Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. Who's with you? And I said, well, my wife and a friend of ours. And they said, oh, well, where's the friend? I said, she's right there. And there was a long pause, and he was like, you're here with 2 women? And I'm like, yeah. What do they do for work? They both practice law. Oh. and hilarity ensued from there.
Exactly.
There were a bevy of jokes to be used, lawyer jokes, a guy with two girl jokes. I think they made some reference to Three's Company at some point during the sketch.
Yep.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. But the fun thing about an improv show is it's different every time.
Right.
And my recollection is every single show we saw there was hilarious. And
Yeah,
we
it
were
was.
laughing until we cried. They were very talented improv performers.
It was always a good show. And I think the 2 or 3 times that we went, we did see the same players over and over again. Because the people that were there, they stayed there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll cover this a bit when we talk about the next club, but they kind of had a following.
Right. Before we talk about our other favorite club, I should mention something else about Pleasure Island. Every night was New Year's Eve.
That was their highlight.
And that was sort of the big thing. Every night they would count down to midnight. They would do a countdown. They had a house band that would perform out in the middle of all these clubs. There would be a live band dance party. And then at midnight, everybody would count down. And I don't recall, were there fireworks or lights or something that happened at midnight?
At midnight, they did the countdown, and there was a small fireworks show. It was on the West End stage on the west side of the property, and eventually they tore that down, and that became the bridge that went to the west side area when they started doing all that redevelopment in the 2000s. But yeah, it was the West End stage, and it was Frankie and the West End Boys.
Ah, yes.
And so, yeah, they would do the countdown. They would start playing about 11 o'clock, and they did cover songs of various 80s and 90s and popular songs of the time period. And then they would build to, 10 minutes till midnight, and they'd start building up to the countdown, and then we do all the countdown, and they'd do fireworks, and they'd fire confetti cannons.
Confetti cannons and streamers. Sometimes they'd hand out the party horns too. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Every night was New Year's Eve.
Yeah. That went along with the logo
for
Pleasure Island, which was that half moon character, sort of reminiscent of that McDonald's
the Mac the Knife
back in the 80s. Yeah, Mac the Knife. Only this guy was, what's his name?
His name was the Funmeister, and I've got a quick little story to share about that. I bought a retro t-shirt a couple of years ago that was dedicated to Pleasure Island, and it had this guy on it. At the time, I remembered the guy being the mascot. I did not know what the guy's name was. So I'm wearing this shirt all day. We come back 2 or 3 times into Bay Lake Tower where we were staying, and it was the same couple of cast members that were there all day long. And the first time we came in, the guy goes, "Hey, look, it's the Funmeister." I thought he was just being goofy and kind of picking on me. Came back the second time, and he goes, "Hey, the Funmeister's back." And I'm thinking, this guy's kind of a jerk. I had no idea. And I think it was one of the boys that actually looked it up, and they were like, "Dad, that's the guy on your shirt. That's the Funmeister. He is referencing your shirt that you chose to wear, and he's remembering it along with you." And I'm like, "Oh, so I'm the jerk."
Right. Who's the jerk here?
Right.
So one other thing I want to say about Pleasure Island is it was not actually named for the Pleasure Island shown in Pinocchio.
Most people thought it was the Pleasure Island from Pinocchio where the kids turned into donkeys.
Right. Well, and if you recall, in Pleasure Island, in the movie Pinocchio, the boys were smoking cigars and drinking beer and
gambling.
Yeah, gambling, and they were, fighting, and I guess every boy's dream. I don't know. So I don't know. Maybe that wasn't quite the vibe that Disney wanted to have for its adult entertainment complex, fighting and drinking and smoking.
But I think they never really fully made it clear to the average person what the backstory was. So everybody, including us, we assumed for years it was based on that until we found out the backstory, which is...
Right. It's based on a seafaring explorer, Meriwether Pleasure. And I think he was shipwrecked on the island, something like that. But apparently for people who were in the know, there were plaques throughout Pleasure Island that explained the backstory
Okay.
and that told the story of Meriwether Pleasure and his friends. In the entire time that we visited there, I never saw those, and that was never made clear to me. But there was, of course, it was Disney, so there was a whole backstory.
Sure. They do a backstory with everything they do.
And interestingly enough, the Imagineer that was not primarily responsible for Pleasure Island, but the number 2 was Joe Rohde.
Oh, right.
Is
Mr.
known
Animal
and-
Kingdom.
Yes, known and loved. Later on, he went on to do Animal Kingdom and is now a Disney legend. But a lot of his touches and attention to detail and humor were shown time and time again in Pleasure Island.
Right. And I think a lot of the reason we didn't see some of those signs is it was dark and it was night and we weren't really looking for detail. We were just, there to eat. We were there to shop and we were there to go to the clubs and go see the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we need to wrap up our conversation about Pleasure Island and talk about the one place that honestly, this is what I think of when I think of Pleasure Island. And I think about this place, like I said, almost every time we go, the Adventurers Club.
The Adventurers Club was based on a 1930s style club that catered to world explorers and adventurers. When I would go in, I would definitely get the feeling like I was in an Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, for sure.
And I was in one of the exotic clubs that Indiana Jones might have been in. I was sort of loosely based on Casablanca or some other movie from the 20s, 30s, or even into the 40s, where you would have these exotic travelers from all over the world that would come together and tell tales of their travels.
Yeah, it was literally a club and they were all members. And the point of the entire time you were there was to make you a member as well. And they had people that would be mingling throughout the crowd that would be part of the shows, part of the welcome ceremony, part of the welcome to the club ceremony, but they were named characters that were there throughout the entire night, and they were acting like they were there to visit the club just like you. It was some of the best interaction that I ever remember having with a cast member playing a part. Eventually, we had picked up the name Streetmosphere character that they used at Disney Studios, Hollywood Studios, and they called them Streetmosphere characters. So these people were Streetmosphere characters that were just part of the club, and they were part of the entire experience. And there was the welcome ceremony, and then there was an animatronic guy. There were puppets. There was a famous drink there called the Kungaloosh. Kungaloosh, and that was part of the ceremony.
That was the toast that you would give as an Adventurers Club member.
Whether you were drinking the Kungaloosh or not.
Right.
The Kungaloosh was just sort of it was a frozen drink, a lot like, a strawberry daiquiri.
Yeah.
And they served them in special glasses. And for the longest time, I had a collectible canteen from the Adventurers Club, which I drank. And then they would refill it, of course, at an extra charge,
of course,
all night long. And it was just such a great experience. And it always culminated in the shows that they had in the library.
So you would go into the library. The seating in there was maybe for about 50 people. It wasn't huge.
They did several shows a night.
They would do several shows a night, usually with a different theme. They sort of had a rotating group of sketches that they would do. Again, the shows would last about 45 minutes.
Yeah, the shows were like, you had the welcome party, and then in the library you would have, they had the welcome party, they had the radio broadcast, they had the Balderdash Cup competition where everybody tried to one-up each other with their adventures or greater. And then I think my favorite one was probably when they were trying to raise money for the Adventurers Club, and it was a radiothon.
Yes.
Oh, these shows were so good. And along with that, they also had a lot of side rooms you could go into. Like, I think the one that I really sticks out of my mind is the mask room.
Yes.
And a lot like they do with Crush, the masks would interact with you.
Yes.
And I remember when we were there on our honeymoon, you were wearing a red dress. And they were like, hey, lady, hey, lady in the red dress.
That's right.
And, they would come to life every half an hour or so. And so people would wait for them to come to life, and they would do these little comedy bits. Obviously, they had cameras. They could see us, but it was just so much fun.
A little bit like the Monsters, Inc. laugh floor.
Yes.
Only with physical 3D masks that their mouths would move,
Like
their
the tiki
eyes
room.
would move.
Like in the
sure,
tiki
like the
room.
tiki room. But yeah, they would do some jokes, and then they would interact with the crowd. That was a lot of fun. It was also fun when you got to interact with some of the cast members that were out and about. A lot of their interactions would sometimes involve some innuendo, and that was kind of fun.
The racy as Disney gets.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty mild, but still a lot of fun.
I guess we could have called this the Adventurers Club family chat, because really that is what I think of when I think of Pleasure Island.
For us, that was always the experience that we look forward to the most. And frankly, today it's the one that sticks out in my mind.
I always remember the main guy was Hathaway Brown, the aviator, the braggart.
Yeah.
And then you had, all these different characters, and there was a female character that was sort of always butting heads with Hathaway Brown, and they would do it. They would do it on the floor. They would do it during the shows, and it was just this really funny back and forth, and it was just so amazing. I think everything around Pleasure Island and the Adventurers Club and the Comedy Warehouse in particular are some of the most well-themed, well-thought-out, original intellectual property ideas that Disney ever did.
Yeah.
I think that it is some of the best Imagineering. I mean, it was the height of the boom with Michael Eisner. It opened alongside Disney MGM Studios, and it was this whole thing. They were expanding it, and then they wanted to. We were talking about it briefly during our Disney adult conversation in the last episode with Lauren, where you mentioned there was a push in the 90s where they were trying to encourage adults to come, and it was because of this.
Right.
And when I was doing some more research, I was looking up some of the old videos that had clips, and they used to give you for free, if you ordered them, a vacation video. You could get one for families. You could get one for adults only. The adults only featured golf and food and Epcot and all the shows, and Pleasure Island was the highlight and the glue that held it all together.
So unfortunately, all good things must come to an end.
Yeah.
And starting in around 2005, Disney really started to change what they were doing with Pleasure Island. And a lot of the longtime clubs started closing. Disney started opening some new concepts, restaurants like Gloria Estefan's Bongos, and some of the other development on the west side with the AMC movie theater, the Cirque du Soleil theater.
They got rid of the stage show. They opened up and put a bridge over there. The Adventurers Club and the Comedy Warehouse made it to the end, though. And it all sort of came to an end around 2008.
That's when Pleasure Island closed for good. A couple of good things, though, that came out of that whole transition to the new concept, which is now Disney Springs and all of the various component parts. Raglan Road was one of the very first restaurants that Disney opened in trying new concepts.
In the Pleasure Island area.
In the Pleasure Island area. And as we've talked about on prior podcasts, that's one of our favorites. So the other thing that makes my heart happy to think that a part of the Adventurers Club lives on is a lot of the props and set pieces from the original Adventurers Club were shipped over to Hong Kong Disneyland and made part of their Mystic Manor attraction, which is sort of part Haunted Mansion, part Adventurers Club, actually.
Yeah, they tried to up the game and changed what the Haunted Mansion was, because different cultures look at ghosts differently, and I think they didn't think it was going to work there, so they turned it into an adventure.
There are a few other concepts that are still able to be found in the Disney parks that are a little bit reminiscent of the Adventurers Club. One thing that I will mention is the Jungle Skipper's Canteen in Magic Kingdom, which survives a lot of the corny jokes from Adventurers Club and the 1930s type theme. Also, if you walk around the restaurant, I think we've talked about this on an earlier show.
Yeah.
You'll see all kinds of jokes and Easter eggs in the decorations, in the paintings that are on the wall. Just a lot of really fun nods that are nods both to the Jungle Cruise and also to the Adventurers Club.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things that are like this now, but like Oga's Cantina and
Trader Sam's Grog Grotto at the Polynesian.
Right, and then you've got the new Beacon Barrel at the Magic Kingdom, which they try to make a themed bar, but nothing like the Adventurers Club has ever become what the Adventurers Club was.
Yeah, I think a lot of those places have some interactive elements that are part of the decor themed entertainment that's kind of going on around you. So more of an experience bar than just some place that you will go to have a drink.
I just really miss it. And I miss the whole idea of Pleasure Island.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really was. And I would like to see something like that again someday. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't.
Everything comes around again.
Yeah, it sure does. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We got met at the door by the butler. He takes us into the library where the show begins. We've got all kinds of things going on. We've got spirits coming out of the boxes. We've got all kinds of fog going up. It was hilarious. It was suspenseful.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. And as always, a big thank you goes out to my wife, Laura, for hanging out today with me in the family chat and talking all about the extinct entertainment district, Pleasure Island. The whole area was something that we really enjoyed, but I think that the loss of the Adventurers Club is the part that hits us the hardest. Maybe someday Disney will find a way to resurrect this idea in some new form, but for now, Kungaloosh, everybody! We also want to send a big thank you out to Guybrush Threepwood for sending in a news story for this episode. If you want to be just like Guybrush, head on down to the show notes and submit an idea for a news story or a family chat topic, or just maybe a comment about something we talked about here on the show to any of our social media pages. Or maybe if you prefer to send us a message the old-fashioned way, send us a message via email to Mickey, Marvel, and More, all one word, at gmail.com. We always love to hear from our listeners. And if we read one of your messages on the show, you will become an official friend of the show. If you become a friend of the show, you will receive a hearty thank you and a crisp high five from the Mickey, Marvel, and More team, because as you know, we have no budget. And while you're there, be sure to check out links to all the news stories we talked about in this episode. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, well, you just sit over there in the corner and you think about what you did. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Okay, I'm not really disappointed, but I'm clearly going through some old childhood baggage. Maybe the old man just needs a nap. We'll see you next time.